Hey guys, welcome to the video. Today we're doing another scary stuff. We did this last time, but it's actually 2 days ago, so we're doing another one, and I'll see you in the video. Story 1.
My name is Sophie, and this happened last year on Valentine's Day. I met Sam 6 months before Valentine's Day. Even though it all started out as casual dating, we soon became really close. I felt like he
Freak, I
is the
forgot
one
something.
for me.
Okay, that is a lot better.
Out a lot, made many good memories. Everything was going well. One day, Sam told me he recently spoke to his mother. She would like to invite us to a Valentine's Day dinner at their house.
Forgot something again? Alright, we're good.
I looked at him with a nervous face and said, are you sure about bringing me to meet your family? Sam gave a big smile and said, come on, Sophie, you're a delight. They will be overwhelmed to meet my girl. Even though I felt things were happening soon, I didn't say
There's
that
a
to
person in the
Sam.
background.
Honestly, I was excited to meet his family too. His family stayed in a farmhouse located in the countryside. I stayed with Sam on the night before Valentine's Day. At midnight, when the clock struck 12, Sam surprised me with a bunch of roses and a beautiful heart-shaped red velvet cake. Sam loved pampering me. We exchanged our Valentine's gifts, and love was indeed in the air. Next morning, we woke up and packed our belongings. It was going to be a 5-hour drive, so we decided to start early. Sam started the car, and we were on our way. As soon as we left the city, we stepped into a refreshing nature. Long trees standing on the roadsides and a bright sky greeted us with cool breeze, cheered me up in no time. We were laughing and talking on the way. I asked Sam, so how many people are there in your family? Sam smiled and said, you're still nervous about this, huh? I awkwardly smiled because I was at the time. Sam then said, well, it's not too much. My parents, my grandma, and my little sister Tina. I replied in a surprised voice, Sam, you have a sister? Why didn't you tell me earlier? How old is she? Sam smiled and said, yes, I have a...
No.
I knew someday you were going to meet her anyway, and she's 12 years old. I laughed at his humor. I noticed then I actually knew nothing about Sam's past or family until now. We always talked about us, but hardly talked about him or his previous life. All I know is Sam teaches in a city school, and we meet in a pub. I shrugged off this uncertain feeling because I am anyway going to meet his family now. We were about to reach when Sam's mom called. I obviously couldn't hear her from the other side of the phone, but with Sam's reply, I guessed that she was also excited to meet us. After 4.5 hours of driving, Sam pointed out to a dusty road on our left and said, see that road? The farmhouse is at the end of it. We got on the road and I was surprised to see how an entire family is managing their life in such a secluded area. As far as my eyes went, I could see only trees and vast fields. At the end of the road stood a wooden farmhouse acquiring a large area. We finally reached near the house and Sam honked his horn. A small girl dressed in flower-printed frock came running towards Sam. Behind her, a woman came too, with a smile on her face. I realized it was Sam's mother, and the little girl is his sister. She hugged Sam and said, welcome home, son, and she must be the beautiful Sophie, and came to hug me too. I felt her affection with her warm hug, and my face turned all red with this unexpected attention. She said in a gentle voice, come on, let's go inside. Everyone is waiting for you two. It was a warm, beautiful house. The house had a lake in the backside. I have never been to a place so close to nature. Hence, everything felt amazing to me. Sam's mom took us to the dining room. An old woman was sitting in a big armchair, and a tall man was pouring himself a glass of wine. Sam's mom introduced me to all of them. Sam rushed to the old woman and said, oh, Grandma, I missed you so much. His grandma smiled and then looked at me. There was something in her stare that made me feel really uncomfortable. She was not just staring at me, rather checking me out. Her big wide eyes crept me a bit. Suddenly the tall man came to me and said, hi, I'm William, Sam's father. Welcome, Sophie. I smiled and said, the pleasure is all mine, sir. Thank you for having me here. Sam's grandma laughed in a creaky voice and said, well, none's gonna have you. We've already cooked food, dear. Everyone laughed at her joke, and I had to join them despite the joke being really not funny. Sam's mom said, we have prepared your bed in Tina's room. I hope you won't mind sharing a room with her. I nodded my head and said, oh no, it's absolutely fine. Sam's mom then turned to the little girl and said, Tina? Take Sophie to your room and be nice to her, okay? Tina chuckled and said, I'm always nice, Mama. Tina held my hand and we walked upstairs. As soon as I entered her room, I got shocked. Her room was nothing like a little girl's room. There were stuffed animals all over. Rabbits, eagles, deer heads were hanging from here and there. I asked her, Whoa, what are these, Tina? She replied in a jolly voice, These are mementos. I said in a worried voice, What do you mean, by mementos? She chuckled and said, Daddy and I like to go hunting every Sunday. These are all the animals we killed, and I stuffed them with Daddy's help. Don't you like my
You're
collection?
not
I was
supposed
out
to
of
kill
words. Suddenly, I hear Sam's voice from behind. Looks like you
Right.
guys are already bonding, huh?
like bald
He
eagles.
stood on the doorstep and smiled. I was surprised to see how casual he was to see his little sister decorating her room with dead animals instead of toys. Tina chuckled and said, I will go check out the frosting of my strawberry cake. Mommy and I made that for you, Sophie. Brother told us you like strawberry. She ran out of the room. Sam came to me and said, Hey, is everything fine? I know we couldn't stay together. My family is, a bit conservative on that front. I replied, No, that's fine, but don't you think your sister's room decoration is a bit weird? Sam laughed and said, Oh, Sophie, I forgot to tell you. Our family has a kick for hunting, you know? We have grown up amidst lots of dead animals.
Another one?
Nothing.
I thought the ad
You'll
was
get
over.
used to it, too. Now go freshen up. Dinner will be served soon. Around 8:30, I got downstairs with Tina for dinner. The dinner table was filled with various kinds of meat dishes. As we all sat down and started to eat, my mind started to forget all the tensions earlier. They were a happy family after all. The steak was delicious. The chicken soup made with their farm-fresh vegetables took all my tiredness away. Tina said in a cheerful voice, Cut the cake, Mommy. Give Sophie the big piece. Sam's sister was really adorable. In one word, I was having a really good time. Sam came to kiss me goodnight. We were just talking when I heard Sam's father's voice from downstairs. Come on, Sam, hurry up. It's time now. I asked, Time for what, Sam? Sam replied, My father and I are going to hunt some wild boar tonight. There's a forest about 20 minutes from our house. Anyways, gotta go, love. See you in the morning. I saw Sam and his father driving away in their van from Tina's window. I was surprised to know Sam could be the guy who likes to hunt wild boars at night. I mean, he appeared very simple to me. I lied down on my bed. Tina was asleep already. Don't exactly remember what time it was, but I heard a woman scream and woke up in fear. It took some time to adjust my eyes with the darkness of the
Why
room.
did you scream?
I saw Tina was not in her bed. I was almost ready to get up and look for her just when I turned to my left and got freaked out like hell. Tina was standing just beside my bed. I said in a terrified voice, What was that? And what are you doing here? Tina replied in a perfectly calm voice, Don't be so scared, Sophie. It was just a pig's cry. I replied in a shaken voice, Pig? What pig? I don't think it was a pig. Tina sat down beside me and said, Yeah, the animals scream when Daddy skins them. It's absolutely fine. Words like that coming from a 12-year-old not only felt bizarre, but pointed out the fact that their entire family is hiding a secret. I decided to check things out on my own, so I acted normal and went back to bed. I waited for Tina to fall asleep again. As soon as I heard her quiet breathing, I tiptoed to the corridor. I saw the light in their woodshed from the window downstairs.
No.
Everyone was
No.
asleep. I slowly opened the door and started to walk toward the woodshed. Soft grass on the ground helped me to suppress the sound of my footsteps. The door of the woodshed was locked, but I could hear sounds of chomping and Sam's father laughing in excitement. I crouched on the ground and put my eye on the door lock. What I saw ran shivers down my spine. A woman was laying on a huge wooden table. She looked like a hiker, and she was dead. Her eyes were open like a dead fish, blood dripping from her face and hand. I couldn't see anymore because someone stood in front of the lock and my view got guarded. But I heard Sam's father say, 2 to 3 groups are residing in the forest who came for camping. Tomorrow we will hunt a male. Your mother wanted to make the steak again. Sam laughed and said, Yeah, Dad, who could tell today's steak was cut out from a man's thigh? I mean, it tasted delicious. I couldn't believe my ears and eyes. These people are cannibals. Oh my God. What do I do now? I quickly got up, and while turning towards the house, I kind of leaned into the door and made a sound. Sam said, Dad, there's someone outside the door. But by the time they opened the door, I was already inside. I peeped from the dining window and saw Sam looking around for some time, and then again went inside. I heaved a sigh of relief. I realized this is my only chance. I rushed to his room and took the car keys. I was about to go to the main door when I saw Sam's grandma standing near the door blocking my way. She gave me a vicious smile and said, "You can't leave. You are supposed to be one of us now. My grandson wants to marry you so you can stay with us forever." I said in a
Stab with the car
disgusted voice,
keys.
"You guys are sick. Feasting on human flesh? You are all fucking cannibals. Leave me alone and let me go." But she obviously didn't listen to me. She started to scream,
She's
and
an
I
old
knew she was going to
grandma.
wake
Push
everyone
her
up. I
down.
rushed toward her and knocked her down with one punch. She fell on the floor, and I ran for my life. I jumped into the
I was
car
only
and saw the
joking.
house lights were on. I didn't look back for a second, just started the car and drove as fast as I could. I reported to the cops about this family, but they only found a burnt-down house on the same address I gave them. I don't know where they all went, but I'm sure they have escaped suspecting I would go to the cops. I just hope I never meet any of them again. Not even that cannibal little girl.
Story 2. Story 2's next. What's story 2?
I'm a 28-year-old single mom. My son Ricky is still studying in preschool. We live in a suburb of Southern California. My husband was an alcoholic. It goes without saying that our marriage was failing. He often abused me, but for the sake of my son, I kept tolerating him. One night he came home really drunk and started breaking furniture out of a rage over a petty fight. Ricky woke up and heard the sounds and came out of his room. He was standing in the middle of the dining room and watching his abusive drunk father creating a huge scene.
Oh.
I was expecting it to be like all the usual nights, just when something horrible happened. My husband Marcus threw a vase toward the wall, but instead it hit my poor Ricky in the head. He started bleeding and fell to the floor being unconscious. I immediately rushed him to the hospital and eventually split up from my husband. I mean, that was all I could take. After reporting to 911, the cops arrested him and he was put in jail. I visited him 2 or 3 times in jail where he pleaded to me to bring Ricky to see him, but I obviously never did. He apologized many times and said it was the alcohol that turned him into a different person, but I was out of second chances for him. Maybe my life wasn't problematic enough, because last month in January I received horrible news that my husband killed himself inside the prison cell. He somehow managed to sneak a fork with him after dinner, then stabbed himself in the neck. Even though I was fed up with him, I still couldn't help but feel sorry for him. I accepted my fate and decided to move on with my life until this unbelievable incident happened. Last week, I finally told my son about his father's death. Ricky broke into tears, even though his father never treated us right. I couldn't help but cry with him, too. We were getting back on our feet until one evening my neighbor, Miss Stewart, came over to our house. Ricky was watching TV in the living room when the doorbell rang. As I opened the door, Miss Stewart greeted me with her homemade pie and said, "Hi, Elena. I hope you are doing well. I am really sorry to hear about your husband. How's your son?" I accepted her gift and replied, "Thank you, Miss Stewart. We are trying our best to get on with our lives." She smiled and said, "I know, Elena, you have been through a lot, which is why out of courtesy I came to invite you at our small party that's going to take place in the town hall on Valentine's Day night. I'm not going to pressure you, but if you decide to come, we will all be very happy to have you there." I smiled and said, "I will try if I can." That night when I was tucking Ricky into his bed, he asked, "Mom, now that Dad is dead, are you going to celebrate Valentine's Day without him?" I was shocked to hear such words come from a 5-year-old. I said, "Why would you say something like that, Ricky?" Ricky looked at me blankly for a few seconds, then answered, "Dad told me to ask you. He would be sad if you do so." The hair on the back of my neck stood up. I said in a shaken voice, "What, Ricky? You know Dad is no longer with us. Please stop saying things like that." Ricky didn't say anything, just turned to the right side and closed his eyes. I couldn't sleep that entire night. There was no way Ricky would have come up with such a question on his own. Next morning, I called my mom and told her everything. She calmed me down and said kids make up things like that when they lose someone at a very young age. Probably Ricky misses his dad, so he is worried that if I start dating again, I will find someone to replace his dad. I went to work after dropping Ricky at school. Around the afternoon, I was going through some important files when my phone rang. I saw it was Ricky's teacher. She called me and said to come to the school immediately.
Oh.
Without thinking much, I rushed to the preschool. As I stormed into the school hallway, I saw Ricky sitting on a bench beside his teacher. He looked all pale and freaked out. I could tell just by the look on his face that something scared him terribly. He ran to me crying and I wrapped him into my arms. His teacher told me Ricky went to the bathroom during class, but when he didn't come back after a while, she went to look for him and saw him sitting on the bathroom floor, hiding his face onto his palms and crying. He is not
Does he
speaking a
like?
single word
Is
about
his
what
dad
happened in the
in
bathroom.
his
I brought
imagination?
Ricky
Like, does
home
he
and
see
cooked
him
him
but no
dinner.
one else does?
I decided to make him
That's
a
what
simple meal
I'm
that
guessing
night.
now.
As I lay beside him, I kissed his forehead and asked, "What happened at school today, Ricky? Did anyone bully you?" He looked at me with his trembling eyes and said, "I don't want to see Daddy ever again, Mom." I don't know if you'll believe me or not, but my stomach dropped right at that moment. I said in a low, scared voice, "What do you mean by that, Ricky?" Ricky replied in a sobbing voice, "I was coming out of the bathroom just when I saw Daddy standing near the door. His face was all scary and his head was stuck. He wasn't blinking, just staring at me." I took a pause and said, "Why do you say his head was stuck?" Ricky replied, "His head was tilted and he couldn't move it. Just kept standing there and watching me." Then he completely broke into tears. I remained awake that night. The horrifying things my son just said took my sleep away. The next day was Valentine's Day. I was already worried about the entire life situation, but somehow to cheer Ricky up, I decided to take him to the mall. The city mall was decorated in big red hearts and Cupid statues were all over the mall floors. Couples were walking around hand in hand. Amidst all that celebration, Ricky and I somehow forgot all the tensions. We played games in the gaming zone, had ice cream. I got myself new clothes and bought Ricky a bicycle. I decided to spend that night with my parents because deep down somewhere I was feeling lonely. After all, it was Valentine's Day. Around 8 we got into the car to drive to my parents' house. I was relieved to think that for one night I will be able to sleep peacefully. My parents live in
Well,
the outskirt
probably,
area, so
hopefully.
we got onto the long empty highway after passing through the city. My mom called in between and I told her we would be there in 15 to 20 minutes max. Ricky was laughing and I was feeling good to see him all happy. The road had very few cars and it was quite a safe drive for us. Ricky said, "Mom, can I play some video games on your phone till we reach Nana's house?" I replied, "Of course you can, my baby." As I leaned to the right side to get the phone out of my pants pocket, Ricky screamed in fear, saying, "Look, Mom, look, it's Daddy!" I pressed the brake so hard that a huge creaking sound took place. What happened next, I will never be able to forget my entire life. The car headlights were making the road ahead clearly visible, but a person was standing in the middle of the road close to my car. I don't know how I should put it, but that wasn't just any normal person. It was my dead husband. Yes, Marcus was standing in front of my car.
That person?
He was staring at Ricky with the blank, expressionless eyes. His face was so pale that it seemed there was no blood left in his veins. And above it all, I realized Ricky told me the truth that day. Marcus was standing there with a tilted
That's
head.
creepy.
His neck had stab wounds on its right side. Due to the broken bones, his head was tilted on the left. I
Oh
could see trident
no!
blood all over his dress and partial face. He then suddenly looked at me and smiled. I've never seen such a demonic smile. I could tell it was his haunting spirit obstructing our way. I had no idea what I should be doing. Ricky and I were both
Drive.
frozen like ice.
It's not
We were
real.
breathing heavily. Marcus walked close to the car in that gruesome appearance and then said in a growling voice, "I hope you forgive me, Elena. I love my son too. Take care, you two."
Mm-mm.
He then turned around and started to walk away. I could see him starting to disappear in the air as if he was made of dust particles. But before vanishing completely into the air, he turned toward me for one last time and said, "Happy Valentine's Day." I don't know how I reached my parents' house that night. If possible, I would like to forget this night ever happened, but I don't think I'll ever be able to. I just hope this
No.
gruesome memory fades away from Ricky's mind once he grows up.
Gosh darn! Ads. Ads are gone. Story 3.
This happened last year on Valentine's Day.
They're all
I'm a
Valentine's,
35-year-old
I guess. I
male.
don't know
I was
why.
working in an IT company where I met a girl. She joined the office as a fresher and started working under me as a trainee. Her name was Melissa. Everyone used to call her Molly. I've been an introvert since childhood. Due to my reserved nature, I hardly approach girls, even if I like someone. But Molly was completely opposite of me. She was outgoing and extremely extrovert. Anyways, due to her training, we used to spend most of the time together in the office. She was a bit younger than me. I kinda liked her carefree nature because it made me feel happy with her. One day, gathering all my courage, I asked her on a date with me. I was expecting a refusal or sudden news that she already had a boyfriend, but instead, she accepted. She told me that she always had her eye out for me, but due to my reserved nature, feared to approach me. We started going out, and eventually, I shared many things with her about my life. People in the office started to pull my legs whenever Molly and I were spotted together by them. We ignored them because we were having a nice time with each other. One day we went to the pub for a couple of drinks after office. Molly got really drunk, and she stayed at my place that day. The next day was Sunday, so I woke up late. I was going to take a shower when I heard sounds in the kitchen. At first, I thought someone broke in, so I tiptoed into the kitchen and saw Molly cooking breakfast. She smiled at me and said, "I'm making French toast. I hope you like it." I got a bit surprised because I wasn't expecting her to stay till morning. After that day, things took a different turn in our relationship. Molly started to stay back at my place every now and then. I won't deny that I really liked her, but sometimes I used to feel out of space in my life. One evening I came back home from the office. Molly took the day off that day. As I went to unlock my door, I found it already open. After entering, I saw Molly was watching TV laying at my couch. She smiled like usual and asked me how my day went. I was really awestruck this time. I asked her, "How did you get my keys?" To which she replied, "I made a copy for myself. I hope it's okay." I wanted to tell her it's not, but I chose not to. I should have told her that day, I know. Anyways, she stayed the night like every other day. I was going through an important file in office when one of my colleagues came to my room and said, "Congratulations, Robert. You owe us a party." Like a completely clueless person, I stood there with a blank face. I came out of my office and noticed a small crowd of office people standing near Molly's desk surrounding her. She was smiling and blushing like a teenage girl. I thought it would be rude to ask her in front of everyone, so I confronted her when she was alone in the cafeteria. I said, "Molly, what the hell is going on?" She smiled and said, "Nothing. I just told everyone that we were a couple and are soon to be engaged." I know it was rude of me, but I laughed because I couldn't believe my ears. I said, "What? I never said anything like that to you. I mean, no offense, but I think I need more time before coming to a decision like that." I expected Molly to react in an angry way, but I never expected she would cross our limits that day. I was, after all, her senior, but she suddenly turned all pissed off and started to scream at me, saying, "Oh, really? You didn't take time to think that before jumping into bed with me?" This is rude. She said I'm an introverted person. So the way Molly started a scene creating people gathered near the cafeteria, I was highly embarrassed and humiliated. I had to take a stand for myself too, because when a woman makes a comment like that about a man in a public place, the general outcome is people identify as the man at fault without even listening to his side. I looked at her with angry eyes and replied, "Molly, I never forced you onto anything. You only stole my house keys and made a copy of it. You only started to stay back at my apartment even though I never asked you to. I like you and wanted to spend more time with you so that we could know each other well. But I think I have known you enough now. Let's just cut off from whatever's going through your mind. I would prefer my freedom and peace more than anything in this world. Sorry, but I can't go on with this." I stormed out of the office that day. I changed my house locks the next day because I didn't want any more troubles. A week had passed and Molly avoided me, and I felt relieved that we had moved past the bitterness and could be on our own now. Our office held a party to celebrate Valentine's Day. Molly asked a guy named Sean from the tech department as her date to the party. Whether she was trying to make me jealous or maybe actually moved on, I didn't know. I asked one of my colleagues also as my date for the party. The party was happening at the office rooftop. The decorations of the party was perfectly themed on Valentine's Day. Big red hearts, balloons all over the place. There was even a small fountain
Balloons.
pouring champagne in the right side. Everyone was dressed at their best. I saw Molly getting really drunk and dancing with her date. I sat down with some of my colleagues and started to drink too. Things were going well. Then we heard a terrible scream. I sprung up from my chair and everyone started to panic. I recognized the scream. It was Molly's voice.
Oh
It took time
gosh.
to figure out that she was not in the party.
Oh,
We all started
why
looking
do
for her
I
and found out she
think?
was screaming from the ladies' washroom.
Never
We all
mind.
rushed towards her. As we reached the
I
washroom,
thought
we
she
saw
fell
a
off the
vicious
whole
sight.
building and then.
Sean was lying on the hallway right near the doorstep of the washroom. His head was bleeding heavily. At first, we all thought he was dead, but then one of our colleagues checked him and said, "Call an ambulance, we can still save him." Molly was sitting on the corner of the floor and sobbing like a little girl. Sean got admitted to the hospital immediately. Everyone asked Molly about what happened. She looked at me and started crying even louder. I went close to her and hugged her. Then I asked what happened. She said Sean tried to take advantage of her and started forcing her. Out of fear, she hit him in the head with her beer bottle. Everyone at the office felt bad for her, and I took her to my place that night. I thought she is already in enough trauma, so I can show her some compassion that night. After that day, Molly again started to get close to me. I won't deny that out of sympathy, I kinda grew a soft corner for her too. Sean was still in the hospital, and the office decided to file a harassment case against him. I don't know why, something just didn't seem right. Molly was happy and jolly again in no time. One day I was walking through the same hallway where we found Sean. I noticed a security camera there, and an idea came to my mind. I immediately rushed to the security room and asked for footage of the Valentine's Day party. As I checked the footage, my suspicion became true. I saw Molly walking with Sean in the corridor, and suddenly she lifted her beer bottle and struck him on the head. You can now guess what happened after that. I submitted those tapes to the official authority. Not only they gave Sean a clean chit, but also fired Molly. Sean even filed a complaint against her to the cops, but Molly has suddenly disappeared. Last night, I received a text from an unknown number that reads, "All I did for you, Robert, you broke my heart. I will come back to get my revenge. Till then, much love, darling." I know it's definitely from Molly. I called the cops and informed them about the text in the morning. I don't know if I'll ever see her again, but Molly, if you're watching this, stay the hell away from me. You are a disgusting person, and don't you dare threaten me this time.
Well, that was scary stuff, I guess. If you enjoyed it, leave a like and subscribe and turn on the bell if you haven't already, so you won't miss videos like this with Tony and my Eve Within and The Walking Dead. Well, we already finished The Walking Dead. The Walking Dead 2. I will see y'all next video. Peace out.